So let's continue our goal setting skill training. Please make sure to share this video in your social networks, among your friends, with your family, and just tell them if it was helpful for you. Maybe you will improve someone's life to the better. I really, really hope so. So in the previous videos, we discussed that moving through our life is like going on a hike trip, and moving towards a particular goal is like planning I don't know, hiking weekend, let's say. And in order to do that, first of all, you need to make sure that your fundamentals are covered, like that you are healthy, that you have necessary equipment. And about this we talked in our first video in this playlist. I gave you like a checklist to check if you have your fundamentals covered. Number two, what we need to do is to have our clear map of reality, because when we have correct map, it's much easier to travel, don't you think? And if our map is distorted or outdated, then we can get lost or get in danger and so on our trip. Having a clear map in this metaphor means having clear perception of reality, being more or less objective, flexible with the way we see the world, other people, ourselves, and to have it up to date, not outdated. So it's really important skill, and you can learn it in our basic cognitive skills training playlist. There it's like completely free training. You do it step by step, and then you have this skill to have a clear map. So this was step 2, having a clear map. Step 3 is figuring out where on this map you are. And for this, about this was our previous video where we discussed how to understand, how to analyze your different life spheres, and to understand which sphere is most important for you right now and which sphere needs most change in your life right now. So this is our step 3. And step 4, which we're gonna do today, we're gonna understand how you are exactly in your current state, and what are your complaints about it, and what you basically want to change. So we're going to kind of analyze more precisely on the map where we are. Okay, so after the previous video, you should have one sphere defined, which is the most important for you, where you really need to do some change, where you really need to do some work. And today I want you to kind of write down your thoughts about this sphere, what exactly doesn't satisfy you in this sphere, and so on. Basically, our thoughts about some problem can be categorized in several ways. First type of thinking that we might have is complaint. Basically, it's saying like, if you go to the doctor, it's saying like, oh, my head, I have headache. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I have headache and it's really horrible. Or you say, I feel depressed. I don't know why, I don't know how, it's really horrible. So this is complaint. We don't know why it hurts. We don't know what is the problem. We just know that something is wrong and this is uncomfortable. So you can write it down like point 1, my complaints. Let's say, for example, you want to have your social life changed. So your complaints will be, I feel lonely, I feel like nobody understands me, I feel like I cannot build relationships, and so on. Or if you want to have your health sphere changed, you can write down that I feel weak all the time, I have stomach pains, I have headaches, I cannot sleep well, and so on. If you have your, let's say, finance sphere as your priority, you can write down, I have debts, I don't have financial stability, I am anxious about money all the time, and so on and so on. So this can also be like complaint. So step number 1, let's write down your complaints, what you don't like in your life, basically. Step number 2 is analyzing the problem. Difference of problem from complaint is that complaint is like symptoms that we see, and problem is the reason for those symptoms. Let's say I complain that I am lonely. The reason for this is that my social need is not satisfied. I don't have friends right now. I don't communicate with people enough. Or my complaint is that I feel anxious all the time, and the reason for this might be that I have, for example, too much coffee and it causes my anxiety to spike. Or my complaint might be that I have migraines, and the reason will be that I don't have proper nutrition, I don't have enough water, and so on. So basically, complaint is something that you don't like, and problem is the reason for it. And here in problem sphere, I really encourage you not to come to conclusions too fast and to actually analyze what other problems are possible, what other explanations of these complaints are possible. Like, for example, if you feel anxious all the time, maybe it's really an issue of coffee, or maybe it's really an issue of some hormonal imbalance or something like that. So once we defined our complaint, we think what causes it, what is behind this complaint, what is the actual problem. And we can have several problems forming one complaint, for example. And in order to actually understand what the actual problem is, most people will need to go to doctors, for example, if we're talking about mental health, because you need to have some tests done about your hormones, about your vitamin D, magnesium, iron, and so on, because some small stupid thing like not having enough iron can make you feel super tired and depressed. And it's really easily solved. You just don't have enough iron. Okay, so step number 2, we analyze what might be the problem. So we have complaint, it's like surface level, and what might be the problem is like at a deeper level. And here I encourage you, if you do not know what is the problem, to go to specialists. Okay, if you cannot find out what is the problem on your own, you can do some research, search for this information online, but in some trustworthy sources. Okay, you can also go to doctor and ask to run some tests if you have some mental health problems or physical health problems. You can also ask other people what they think might cause this situation. You can also go to psychologist, like you can come to consultations and we can analyze your problem together and find out what is the actual problem. Also, so basically it's important to separate complaint from problem. This was our second step. Write down your problems, or noting that I don't know what the problem is, I need to explore, I need to investigate this and this and this. It's kind of like, complaint is a crime scene and you see somebody killed there, and problem is having suspects, like this person killed them, this person killed them, or this person killed them. Step number 3 that we need to do, we need to describe in detail our problematic state. State in which we are living right now because of this problem. So, for example, what should be included in this description? First, we include thoughts, like which thoughts are part of this problem, which thoughts are consequences of this problem, which thoughts create this problem, like thoughts in general. Like, for example, if my complaint is that I feel depressed, then I might write down that my thoughts are that I'm useless, that life is hopeless, and so on. And all these thoughts that are related to this problem, to this complaint. So number 1 is thoughts. Number 2 is feeling. How are you feeling in this problematic state? And this is very important, to analyze it in such many ways, because many of us, when we actually have big problems, we might not realize how big they are until we write it down and until we actually look at this. Like, many people who have eating disorders don't realize how bad it is until they actually look at the facts. Or many people who are in, let's say, abusive relationships, they don't realize how horrible it is until they sit down and look at the facts. Many people don't realize how detrimental their lifestyle is until they actually see the facts. So here we kind of describing all the problematic states so that we can see the influence of this problem on our life. So number one is writing down your thoughts, how your thoughts are in this problematic state. Number two, we write down our feelings, like, do you feel excited and happy, or do you feel tired all the time? Do you feel anxious or secure? Do you feel shame, or do you feel anger, or do you feel pride, or something else? So basically you write down feelings that are part of this problem state. Number three, write down your behaviors, actions that you take. So, for example, some anxious can be reasons for this problem state, and in most cases, anxious and problematic state, they kind of go like vicious circle. Like, for example, you feel unhappy, you drink alcohol. Because you drink alcohol, you feel even unhappier. Because of it, you drink more alcohol, and so on. So in actions and behaviors, we have different kinds of addictions you might have, different kinds of coping mechanisms you might use, different kinds of behavioral strategies you use to feel better in this problem state. Some of them might be good and effective, some of them might be a bit harmful for you. So make sure to separate those. So number three was actions and behaviors. Number four is physical sensations, how you physically feel in this problem state. Like, for example, how does your anxiety feel? Or how does it feel to not having stable regime, let's say, or stable routines? Or how does it feel when you are jealous, let's say? How does it physically feel? And also in physical sensations, you can note just your physical health consequences. Like, for example, because you have stress, because of this problem, you don't sleep well, or you don't eat well, or you're feeling tired all the time, or you're feeling anxious all the time, and this causes you, I don't know, to have tremor, right? Something like this. So number four is physical sensations. Number five is how this problem is connected to other people and your relationships, how it influences relationships with other people. For example, maybe it makes them worried about you, and it makes them feel like they have to take care about you all the time. Or maybe on the opposite, because of this problem, you are playing hyper independent and trying to do, like, you know, these avoidance strategies with other people. Or because of this problem, you feel too shy to meet new people. So number, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 6. Oh no, 5. Number 5 is how it influences your relationships. Yes, so this was all about our problem state. Next step, like number 6, are exceptions. This is a very, very important thing. Like, we have some kind of problem, but our life is too varied, too rich, let's say, to never have any exceptions. And knowing when this problem does not appear is as important as knowing when it does appear. So in exceptions, you write down situations or circumstances in which this problem becomes less, doesn't appear, and so on. Actually, this kind of analysis is really useful even for like physical problems. Like, if you have migraine, it's as important to analyze when your migraines appear as well as when they do not appear. What happened there? Why they did not appear? Maybe you ate something different, maybe you slept better, maybe something else happened. Okay, so number 6 are exceptions, when this problem doesn't appear or when it is less powerful. Okay, let's go through some example, because I know that it might sound a bit confusing when just talked about like this in theory. Let's say that you have some attachment issues and you have like problems with the relationship. Your complaint will be like, I don't feel loved, I feel insecure, I'm jealous all the time, I feel like my boyfriend might leave me, that they don't actually love me, and all this. This will be complaints. The problem, we don't know. One, we can analyze, maybe it's some biological factor. Let's say I have hormonal imbalances, or I have this premenstrual dysphorial disorder. This is disorder that kind of makes you feel very, very depressed and anxious before your periods. And maybe this is some kind of anxiety because of caffeine or something like this. So one idea of problem might be biological factors. Another idea might be that I have attachments insecurity from the past, and this is I don't have like, secure attachment to people. This is why I feel anxious all the time. Another idea of problem would be that we do not have good communication with my boyfriend, so I don't let him know what I want. Okay, this is third kind of problem possible. Fourth kind of is that I let him know what I want, but he doesn't do it. So maybe he doesn't care about me, or maybe he's just not a person like that. Maybe this is like one-sided relationship when I invest much more, and so on. This is our fourth possible problem. So you see, the same complaints, they are like on surface level, like an iceberg, and other and reasons for those complaints, they can be very diverse. It's like our crime scene, like, right, we see on the crime scene that you are feeling insecure in this relationship, that you are not happy in this relationship. Who is the suspect? Maybe it's your biological body, biological problems. Maybe it's your attachment needs. Maybe it's your lack of communication. Maybe it's your boyfriend who doesn't do what you want. Or maybe they all together killed someone and create the crime scene. So we need to analyze the problems. This was our step 2. Then we go into describing our problematic state. And here, for example, first, thoughts. I think that I am not important. Boyfriend doesn't care about me. He is too selfish. He doesn't love me. I'm not lovable. Maybe I need to do something to make him love me. Or what is wrong with me? Why I always end up in relationships where I'm not loved? And so on and so on and so on. So different kinds of thoughts. Next, feelings. If you're thinking like that, probably you feel depressed, angry, ashamed, what else? Insecure, jealous, and so on and so on. So you write down all your feelings. Then write down your actions and behaviors. For example, you might um, get triggered by some small things your boyfriend say and start crying and want him to kind of reassure you all the time. Or maybe you provoke his jealousy to prove to yourself, like, oh no, he cares about me. Or maybe you expect him to guess what you want instead of just saying it directly. This also is like a behavior, right? You kind of like, or maybe you're trying to manipulate him in order to get some attention. Or maybe you're trying to be a very good girl and do everything to please him so that he finally loves you. Or maybe you're on the contrary trying to play very like independent and like you don't need anyone. I'm so strong on my own. So this is all possible ways of behaviors caused by this in this problematic state. You can also, maybe when you feel upset that your boyfriend doesn't pay attention, maybe you drink alcohol, or maybe you smoke, or maybe you eat a bag of chips, or maybe you eat tons of ice cream, or maybe you call your friends and complain to them all the time. All these are behaviors that we take to make ourselves feel better. And some behaviors can be good, some behaviors can be bad. Then physical sensations, like for example, because you feel insecure in this relationship, you cannot enjoy sex life, you cannot relax, you cannot just ask for what you want, you cannot focus on your own sensations, instead you want to please him all the time. So because of it, you don't have those like physical sensations, right? Or maybe because of it, you feel overly anxious all the time, and it makes you feel stressed and makes you feel tired. Or maybe you feel what else, maybe because of anxiety you cannot sleep very well, and so on. Or maybe your physical sensations really depend on the mood of your partner. Like if your partner shows a lot of love and affection, you feel wonderful. If your partner shows no love and affection, you feel completely tired, you don't want to do anything, you cannot sleep, you cannot eat, and all that. I'm doing it a bit in an exaggerated way, so that you see it as a clear example, so it doesn't have to be that exaggerated. So this was our physical sensations. Then influence on relationships. Like how does this problematic state influence your other relationships? And actually here, in addition to relationships, you can add other spheres of life. Like how does it influence relationships and how does it influence other spheres of life? For example, if you're feeling so insecure in relationship with your partner, maybe you are paying all your attention to this relationship and you are neglecting the relationship with your family, neglecting the relationship with your friends, and so on. Or maybe it influences your other spheres of life. Like for example, you're in a relationship with someone and you're trying to earn their love by buying them gifts all the time, and because of it you're spending huge amount of money for this, and it influences your finances. Or maybe you take care too much of this other person and not enough of your own health, and your health suffers from this. Or maybe what else, or maybe you forgot your own hobbies and just do what your partner likes, to be like, together all the time, or something like that. um yeah, so basically how it influences your outside life, outside of this relationship, let's say. How does it influence your relationship with other people? How does it influence your health? How does it influence your finances? How does it influence your career? And so on and so on and so on. We need to see this as a whole picture. Yeah, so this is the end of our video. Let's remind you what we need to do. First of all, we write down our complaints. This is basically us describing the crime scene. That someone is suffering, what is the feelings you feel, how you feel, what is the complaint you have about your current state. Number two, we write down problems. These are suspects. We think that they caused the problem, okay? That they are the problem, basically. Number three, we describe our problematic state, in which we include first, describing our thoughts, second, describing our feelings in this problematic state, third, third, sorry, I get tired already from speaking. Third, describing our actions and behavior. Four, describing our physical sensations and and health influences, for example. And number five, describing how this problem is influencing our relationships, or how it is created in our relationships, and also how it influences other spheres of life, like our finances, our security, our health, our I don't know, career, our hobbies, our social life, and so on and so on and so on. And number six, last one, we describe exceptions, when this problem does not appear, when was maybe past situations when this problem did not appear, and so on. This is a very good description of your problem, and to understand, and you can get a lot of insights here, but insights are not really the aim here. We need to understand where you are in order to understand where you want to go. We need to figure out your point on the map. And after this exercise, you will know exactly where you are on this map. You can have ideas who are the suspects, why you ended up here, and you can check them. Like you can go to doctors, you can analyze, like, am I feeling anxious because I'm drinking too much coffee, for example, or something like that. You can also understand how this problem actually manifests in your life, how it influences other things in your life, because oftentimes we kind of close our eyes, especially it's typical for someone with addiction, like addiction to alcohol, addiction to drugs, addiction to abusive relationship. All these addictions, they make us kind of close our eyes and not notice how bad the problem actually is. So such exercise can do several things. First of all, it makes you understand where you are. Secondly, it can generate some kind of insights. Thirdly, it makes our problem more manageable because we see it as like where it appears, where it doesn't appear, what are the exceptions, and so on. We see it clear instead of some vague, scary thing. And number four, it can really increase our motivation because we see how this problem actually influences our life. And if you want to increase your motivation further, you can, especially if you're dealing with addiction or with something like, like really harmful for your future, for your life, you can also write down, like, if you don't change anything, how this problem is going to get worse in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years. This is especially good for people with addictions when they cannot find motivation to get out of it, because getting out of an addiction is really difficult, but staying in it is even more difficult. So you need to have this like horror future image to scare yourself enough to change something. But well, I hope you do not have addiction, my dear viewer. So let's but this is an idea. Like, if you want to increase your motivation by fear, you can also describe how this problem gonna influence your life in 5 years or 10 years and so on. Or another possible thing is that you wrote all this down and actually understood that it's not actually a problem, it's not a big deal, it doesn't influence my life so much. Maybe you were just anxious and you wanted to fix something, or being like too perfectionistic, or maybe you're just avoiding the actual thing that you need to change, and instead you focus on something familiar. Okay, so this is also a possibility. Like this exercise allows you to better understand what is going on, why is it going on, to have already first steps to check why is it happening, and also to understand, is it really that important for me to change? Do I really want to change it, or is it all right as it is? Because actually many things we do not need to change. Like, if it's all right, it's fine to say I don't care. I don't care. We cannot be perfect in all aspects of our life. So we need to choose carefully what we want to change and what is fine as it is, instead of lying to ourselves. Okay, so this is the last video about problem. And in the next video, we're gonna talk about setting up goals. So stay with me, subscribe to this channel, please share this video, share links to this channel, share links to my playlists and trainings in your social networks among your friends, because this will help me so much. Please, please. And also note that you can have auto-generated subtitles. So you can choose them in the settings down there or up there. YouTube does that. It translates my speech in your language, so you can share this video even with people who do not speak English. So please do it. It will be your biggest thank you for me, and hopefully you can help someone change their life and help them become happier and maybe even save their life. Because sometimes all we need to change is actually just knowledge, information, motivation from some outside source, and you might send my videos as such source. Okay, I see you next time. We're gonna talk about goals and which goals are good goals and which goals are unrealistic and damaging. Bye bye.